shut up when I'm talking to you. That was like, oh my God, I found my I wouldn't say motto, but what is it, like my, like this is what, like my angst as a, preteen or a teen. I was maybe 12. And I was like, this is it. This is fucking it. Like, and then of course I was so obsessed with that album, and I was starting a band at the time, and I was in a band, and I was like, this is what I want to do. This is how I want to sing. I was like, he could sing and scream. Like, yeah, cool. And I didn't realize later that it's like, yeah, a lot of people can't do that.
It's an art form.
Yeah. But I've learned, like, at that stage in my life, I was like, that's what I'm going to do. So it was like, I practiced and learned on my own by listening to people like Linkin Park, you know what I mean? And learned and was in a band, and, obviously trying every kind of genre for many, many, many years. But that album was everything.
At what point do you, like, no, I have chills, because it's like this thing that, like, something that's had so much influence on you as a human being now becomes something that you have this honor. And I mean, dude, like, it is a weight, it's a responsibility, it's a bunch of things. And but, like, just a testament to what you've created, right? And
well, I also, like, just to add on, like, Emily, well, we looked at it like, we know that there's that idea of, like, it's important, like, the singer of this band is an important role that if we were to keep going, we'd have to, like, solve. To try and make it not so heavy on ourselves, I would call it like a math problem, like. Because that to me, it takes the emotion out of it a little bit. It makes it feel doable, and I'd be like, yeah, we don't have the math. Like years ago, the math didn't work out. We didn't have the things that we would need in order to keep going. So the idea was, you got to figure out the equation. Like, what do we need? And it turns out, among other things, at least the stuff that's tangible, like the things that I can point my finger at and say that's important, is, like, obviously the talent, Emily's, like, talent as a vocalist, versatility, but there's also, like, the emotional aspect, like when she sings, do you feel like it's just, like, pouring out of her soul? Like, because that is such a thing, it's such an important part of the band's sound, is having somebody who emotes that way, that it doesn't feel performative. And then most importantly, what most people don't even think about is, do we all get along really well, and do we, like, want to spend time together? Because we're going to be spending a bunch of time together in the studio and then getting on the road and so on and so forth. And when friends of mine ask now, they're like, how's everything been going? Like, now you've been on the road together, you've done all these shows, and you're really getting into the thick of it. How is everything going? And these are friends that I can, like, say anything to. I could tell them if it sucked. And I was like, yeah, one of the best things I notice is that, like, we'll be done with rehearsal. Let's say it's like, I don't know, it's like 4:30. Rehearsal ended at like 4, and we're still just, like, hanging out. Like, we'll just sit around and hang out, and I not even notice to me, it's like, I don't even notice we're there. And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I got to go home. Like, we've been just sitting around and talking.
It's always the one person that's like, oh shit, I got to go.
Yeah, somebody.
And then it kind of breaks up the party a little bit.
Right. But I feel like that's, like, if not for that, we would totally just, like, sit around and hang out forever. Yeah. Which is that's
special.
Such a good sign, right? Like,
yeah.
It was really nice.
Absolutely.
Well, you want to be vulnerable and create, and also, like, pave this path with people that you want to be around.
Yeah.
Like, being in a band is very much like having an extension of your family. You have to spend the most time with one another. You should enjoy it.
Yeah. Bands are, like, these days, so most artists that you see, like, if you look at your stuff that you're listening to on, your little playlist or whatever, I started to think, like solo artist, duet, like, this is 2 people, this is 3 people. And then beyond that, like, bands, at least in my playlist of, like, modern music, bands are really rare these days,
Yeah.
like that are coming out now. And I think that part of it is because it's hard. It's harder. The more people you put into that equation, the more chances for like just differing opinions about things. Not even the personal stuff. Not even like, oh, we got to fight about a thing. It's more like, oh, I think the band should be like this, or I think the sound should be like this, or I think we should look like this on stage. And when you've got more people, then you've got more people pulling in different directions potentially. So it's pretty special to have, in our case, 6 people who are all pointed in generally the same, or at least a really similar direction.
It's true. Like art is subjective. One's career vision for themselves is personal, you know? So for it all to align is...
Oh, yeah. And I love being in a band. I mean, again, we were talking about Dead Sarah. I was in Dead Sarah for 20 years, you know? Like, I love it.
You get it.
Yeah. And it's a lot of, you know...
interpersonal and professional relationships.
Yeah. But it's like the purpose there is so much greater, you know, and what we love to do. That it's easy to kind of talk about, you know, what we need to just to get along, you know? And, you know, as long as you have that purpose there, or like, you know what you're doing, or like it's about the music, it's about, you know, there's something there, there's a connection. It's quite easy, you know? And I'm always pushing people to be in bands, and I have been forever. And I'm always like high-fiving people, like, just started a band. I'm like, fuck yeah! If there's anything I could do to help, it's like it's the greatest. It's the greatest reward when it works.
You mentioned like this idea of having to tackle this whole thing like a math problem because the only way to do that is by putting emotions aside.
Yeah.
Like, is that like a part of grieving, or what? Like, what is that?
I don't think. I think that I just, you know, for me, like defining things certain way, like words matter, right? Like I choose words that, like, when we're writing lyrics, like every little detail is important. And for me, like, you know, when I call it a math problem, I think that's just like a self-defense mechanism so that it doesn't feel as like scary.
Totally. Because emotions
math is finite, like, right? So like that's very doable to me. And as we were like getting through it, I think like M was saying, you know, it came into focus really gradually and really organically. It didn't like we didn't go, all right, starting today, we're going to reform the band. Starting today, we're going to find a singer. Like that's like leaving your apartment and saying, starting tonight, I'm going to find a spouse. It's just like, you're going to do what? That's a crazy thing to do. Don't do that. Like, why don't you go out and like see who's out there and hang out with some people and meet somebody and see if you get along. Like, that's way better. And by the way, I think I'm riffing off of this because